Several years ago, I got to read Howard Schultz's book, Onward. Schultz is the executive chairman of Starbucks, and in this book, he describes his original vision for Starbucks and how they got off mission in the late 1990s, early 2000s. Onward is a book about what they did from 2008 onward to try to get themselves back on mission. I found in this book a number of principles that were good and applicable to the church. Well, earlier this week, I received a letter from Howard Schultz. Well, it was a letter he wrote to millions of Starbucks customers like me. Described why they were going to be closing more than 8,000 stores on Tuesday of this week. Said that they needed a time to gather with their partners, their employees, to participate in an experience of education and of learning from one another about racism and discrimination. Turns out that there had been an incident in Philadelphia earlier this year that prompted this. And this incident required them to retrain employees. They needed to find where they had shortcomings in their own training and policies and to recognize their own biases. And so they took time to do that. And I applaud Starbucks for taking this step, for being responsive to this situation. Now, only time will tell if it really does yield change, but I'm glad they're having the conversation. Well, in addition to communicating about why they were closing their stores on Tuesday, there were two other things in this letter that stood out to me. The first was that Schultz reaffirmed his vision for Starbucks as a third place, a place between home and work. He said it ought to be a comfortable, safe place for people to enjoy coffee, to sit, to read, to write, to host a meeting, relax, and do countless other things that we do at Starbucks. That's been one of their values since the early 80s. But the second thing that stood out to me was what Schultz wrote about wanting Starbucks to be a place of welcome, an inclusive gathering place for all. I got to tell you, when I read that, it felt like he stepped on my toes. Well, stepped on all of our toes. Because isn't that what the church is supposed to be? Aren't we supposed to be a safe, comfortable third place between work and home? Aren't we supposed to be the inclusive gathering place for all? Especially for those of us who call ourselves disciples of Christ, we claim our identity as including the fact that we welcome all to the table as Christ has welcomed us. Shouldn't it be the local church and not the local coffee shop that's taking the lead on this? Well, like the recent incident at Starbucks, the church has a rather checkered history when it comes to welcoming. We think we're friendly and hospitable, but sometimes we fall short. As a former ministry colleague of mine used to say, the church is full of nice people until we're not. But that reality doesn't mean that we should be outdone by well-trained baristas. Our hospitality isn't a corporate mandate. It's a mandate from Christ to love our sisters and brothers as ourselves. I think if we can get this right more often than not, the church may return to being that third place between home and work, an inclusive gathering place for all. Because, after all, I think that's the vision of our leader.